Hi, I'm Trevor Lund of RevTrev.com, and in this edition of RevTrev TV, I'm pleased to introduce to my readers, probably even a bit more. I think Giselle has done a guest blog for me, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
So you probably have seen her writing anyway, and this is Giselle, and I want to talk to her about her book, Dio Volente, which is God Willing, and Giselle, this is an exciting book to talk about for me because I love history. I love church history, and tell the readers about this book. Where does it take place? What's going on with it?
Well, it's set in first century Italy in 69 A.D. in the town called Puteoli, Italy, which that's where the Apostle Paul landed after the shipwreck and on his final trip to Rome. And he found there some believers, and he spent a week with them there. And doing research and watching documentaries of Peter and Paul, and nobody really talked about what those people would have been like. So that's where I got the idea for that setting. And so I do a little flashback that Paul's visit would have been in 67 AD. And so I do a little flashback to when they were, what Paul's visit would have been like there and how he converted, the people, some people, and found believers and so forth. And so what I did is, as I started doing research, the story started falling into place. So it's a kind of a Romeo and Juliet story with the daughter of the magistrate of Puteoli, who falls in love with the son of the bishop of the Christian church. She's taken there by her cousin, and she starts to think about what the church is telling them, that there's only one God, and that Jesus Christ, died. The whole concept to the Romans must have been so bizarre because they had a God for everything. And that was interesting, too, in doing the research on Roman mythology.
And the one thing you mentioned that I picked up on, it was a son of the bishop. Now, first century, that wouldn't have been an issue, would it? But when we think of the term bishop, it's like, what's a bishop doing with a son?
Right. Well, they weren't called priests at the time. Well, yeah, they used the word priest, but the priests were more on the Roman side. They had the Roman priest, but they were bishops in the church. The head of the church was a bishop. Mm-hmm. And so then eventually the Catholic Church then changed. Haven't gotten to the Middle Ages yet. That's when the Catholic Church started, forming and trying to rule everybody. And that's how I started this, because I'm just so fascinated. How did we get from the simple house churches and to what it is now with so many denominations and each one having their own rules, and who started the rules and who made these up and why, and just curiosity. I just started. So that's why it. I started with this book, and the story just fell into place.
And yeah, I'm actually doing a series on RevTrev on the history of the church as I see it from my perspective, and just going through the early church councils and seeing how it developed. And it's totally amazing to me. There's such depths of truth in those creeds that a lot of us in churches will say every week.
Yes,
and you don't grasp the significance of it. Like the first time those thoughts were put together, and how transforming and how controversial and how absolutely fascinating part of history for me.
Oh, it is. And as I start going into the second century, which I'm in the process of writing book 2 of the series, that's when they start trying to compare Greek philosophy with Jesus's teachings, and then they start. Then you get the Gnostics in there, and I just wanted to avoid the Gnostics altogether. So I was like,
"Oh, it's pretty hard. It's pretty hard in the second century, that's for sure." If it wasn't for Augustus, anyway, trying to remember. You've gone to Italy and you looked at some of these sites that you wrote about. What was that like to do that kind of research?
Well, I wasn't doing research at the time. I was just playing tourist, but I was just fascinated by the condition of Pompeii and Herculaneum,
Mm.
how Vesuvius and between the ash and the lava, it just preserved everything. So it's literally you're stepping back into, I think it's August 23rd, 79 AD, when the day that Vesuvius erupted. And because of that, you really feel like you're going back in time, especially Herculaneum. The differences are is Pompeii was rained on with the ash and the rocks and the pumice stone. And Herculaneum, it was flooded with the lava.
Oh, okay.
So where one was destroyed from the top down, the other one was destroyed from the bottom up,
Mm.
which preserved it more. So Herculaneum, you can actually walk through the streets and the buildings are still there. And all the frescoes are there and very colorful
Yeah.
in amazing artwork and the statues and everything. It's still there, and it's really like stepping back into 79 AD. And so I always was fascinated with history. And then with Bible studies at my church was, what it would be like to live in the first century and
Mm.
be part of the growing church.
Hmm.
And that's how I started, thinking about it and was inspired to write the novel.
Yeah, have a textbook that has it's all the graffiti in Herculaneum, I think, and it just like
Yeah.
it's like avoided the
Yeah.
frescoes, but just what were people thinking? And it's just like, man,
Yeah,
they got
and actually in Pompeii at that time, it was the elections, and there was somebody that was running for office, and the BBC did a documentary, which was perfect timing because it's just when I had to write the Vesuvius scenes. And I must have watched that thing at least 20 times, and I actually put that character into the story, so they're real life characters within the fictional characters in the story.
oh,
What makes it really interesting.
that's amazing. That I like those kind of stories for sure. Now, your book has won an award. Tell us about that. Congratulations! And
Yes. In the fall of '09, I was unemployed, and a friend of mine gave me tickets to the Women of Faith conference here in Phoenix. And in the program, there was to enter a writing contest, and it was free. And I'm like, oh, hey, free's great. And so I had the novel I'd been trying to sell. I had an agent, and with the economy the way it was, she was having trouble selling fiction. She kept saying, well, nonfiction is selling more than fiction. And I'm like, yeah, 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 yeah. Well, she had it for 2 years. So I says, I have nothing to lose. Let me enter it in there. Then in end of February, I get an email that I'm one of 30 finalists out of 700 entries.
oh wow,
And so, okay, that was exciting. So I had all my church friends praying for me, and I'm like, oh wow, I'm finally going to get published. And March 1st, they told me they were going to announce the winners there, and so I looked there and I stared at the screen, and I was like, oh, I won second prize. And so I won a self-publishing package with Westbow Press, and so here's the final project. They designed the cover, and see, I got the volcano and everything, and so
that's beautiful.
And this back here, this is an actual rendering of a painting in Pompeii, and what's neat is that it shows Vesuvius as a cone shape.
Oh.
And when it erupted, it actually blew its top, so it's about like this now, So,
Oh wow.
that's why I had it in here. And this is Bacchus, the god of wine, and they always stuck a snake in there too for good luck and something. So, and the day before Pompeii, or the day of the eruption, it was the Vulcanalia festival, which Vulcan being the god of fire.
Yeah.
So, it's just ironic that it was the festival for the god of fire, and then Vulcan is where we get the word volcano from.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and that would have meant something profound to the Romans, right? Like it's that's one of those.
Yeah,
you don't need to cut open the goat to find out what that means.
Doing this to us, didn't
That's
we
right.
party enough for them?
Well, Giselle, we're going to pick this up next time. You mentioned that you're doing a series, and we'd love to hear more about that. So when we come back next time, we're going to talk
Okay,
about the series that you're embarking on.
great.
Thank you so much for joining with us, and we'll catch you next time.